Greetings. Today we're going to be talking about the differences between many and much. Now, these are both used to refer to a large quantity of something, but of course they are used in different contexts, right? And today we're going to learn about those contexts. But many and much are examples of quantifiers, and a quantifier would refer to a word or phrase that is used to describe the quantity or amount of a noun without being precise. So these are going to appear before the noun, right? And once again, they are not precise. So they tell you the amount of a noun without being precise. So examples would be many, much, several, a lot of, few, right? So any word that tells us the amount of a noun without being precise would be classified as a quantifier. So we'll start with the uses of many. So many is used with nouns that are plural and countable, right? Of course, you know what plural means, meaning that, more than one. But countable means that the noun can be counted using numbers, right? So in addition, these are nouns that have a singular and a plural form. Okay, so a countable noun is a noun that can be counted using numbers, which means that it has a singular and it has a plural form, right? So examples include cats, movies, and people. So of course these are plural, but if we wanted to make these singular, we would say a cat, a movie, and people, where we would say a person, right? So these nouns here can be made singular, right? But of course, when we use many, we're going to use many with the plural form of the noun, right? So I can use numbers to count each of these nouns, right? So I could say 7 cats, I could say 5 movies, or I could say 10 people. Well, persons really, but the point is plural, that's plural, right? But yes, so let's see the type of sentences that we use, in which we use many. So use with sentences that are affirmative and negative. So affirmative simply means positive. So it's just a statement of something, right? It's not negative. Negative would be the opposite, right? So that's what we call an affirmative sentence, a sentence that just states something, okay? And of course, a negative would contain a negative, right? And it's also used with questions, right? So we can use, so these are the 3 scenarios that we use, or types of sentences that we use many, right? In which we use many. So let's look at some examples here. So affirmative, I have many tasks to do, okay? So you see that the noun that many is describing is plural, of course, and task is something that has a singular and a plural form, and you can count tasks. So we use many here. I have many tasks. A negative sentence, she does not have many friends. Once again, friends would be plural, and friends could be made singular, and you can count friends using numbers, right? And a question, were there many fans in the stadium? Fans would be plural, of course, and fans can be counted using numbers, and then fans can be made singular, right? Now, these are the 3 uses of many. Well, the types of sentences that in which you can use many. But when it comes to the affirmative use of many, although it is used, many may regard it as formal, right? In everyday English, although we do use many, some may say it is formal, it's formal usage, and we would more use a lot of or lots of, right? Now these two quantifiers have the same meaning as many, right? Meaning a great amount of, right? For sure, there's no issue with the negative usage of many, but in terms of the affirmative, in some instances, it may be regarded as formal to use many in an affirmative sentence, right? So the alternative would be to use a lot of or lots of. So a lot of is more formal than lots of. But these two mean the same thing, right? These two mean the same thing. And these can be used in any context, right? When we get to much, we are going to see something a little different. Because I told you here that although many is used in the affirmative, some may opt for a lot of. Like in this case, we may say, many people may say, I have a lot of tasks to do, rather than say I have many tasks to do. But this is fine. The usage of many in the affirmative there's nothing wrong with that, really and truly. But you can also use a lot of or lots of, right? So yes, so many is going to be used with nouns that are plural and countable, right? So this is many. Now we are going to proceed to much. So we move on to much. And before we get into much, it is worth mentioning that much can also be an adverb, right? Because if I use the sentence, I like that very much, then much is an adverb, is a function like an adverb, right? But we're talking about it in the context of being a quantifier. So that's just a by the way, right? So much as a quantifier. So much is going to be used with nouns that are singular and uncountable. So the opposite of many, right? While many is used with nouns that are plural and countable, much is going to be used with nouns that are singular and uncountable, right? And uncountable nouns are nouns that cannot be counted using numbers, right? In addition, they do not have a plural form, right? So these are nouns that are going to be singular and singular alone, right? So examples include joy, confusion, and information. So if we look at these three nouns, we have to ask ourselves, can we count them? No. You can't say informations or confusions. Well, joy, you can say, okay, joys in life or whatnot, but we'll get to that in the future. We'll get to that shortly. But for the most part, these are nouns that you cannot count, right? So you can't count these. So when it comes to the sentences in which much is used, much is going to mainly be used in negative sentences and with questions, right? We don't really use much in the affirmative, and we'll see why shortly, right? So let's start with a negative sentence. So Harry does not have much patience. Much. Patience is singular and it's uncountable, so we use much here. Harry does not have much patience. With a question now, and pay attention here. How much water do you have? Water. Can you count water? No. Water is singular. So we use much when we are inquiring about the quantity, right? Now, take a look at this question. Is there much water? Now, I would have told you that we don't really use much in the affirmative, and this is the reason that this is not really used. Yeah, you wouldn't construct this like this. You wouldn't say is there much water, you would say is there a lot of water, right? Or is there lots of water? Because using much in the affirmative is regarded as very formal, right? But in the everyday usage of English, we would say a lot of or lots of in place of much when it comes to the affirmative. Yes, this is a question, but you have to realize that if you if the there and is switch places, this will become an affirmative sentence, right? So if we make that affirmative, it will be there is a lot of water. We won't say there is much water. No. We wouldn't, even that alone sounds a little off, right? But that's not what we would say. We would say there's a lot of water, or is there a lot of water if we're asking a question, right? Now, the affirmative, there is much fear. No, we wouldn't say that. That sounds off. We wouldn't say that. We would say there is a lot of fear, or there is lots of fear, right? But if we want to use much in the affirmative, we can use adverbs. You can put an adverb before it, right? So there is so much fear. This is acceptable. There is so much fear. And of course, if you're going to use an adverb, then you can't use it before a lot of, right? So that's just for if you want to use much in the affirmative, you could add an adverb before it, right? So there is so much fear, right? We wouldn't say there is much fear. No. That would be that is not used. That's not something we would say in everyday language. So this is why much is really only going to be restricted to negative sentences and with questions, right? And with the questions, you still have to be careful, because if the question is like this one, right? You would and it's practically can be made into affirmative sentence, then you know you use a lot of or lots of, right? So much is going to be used with nouns that you cannot count and nouns that are singular, right? So now we are going to proceed to nouns that can be countable and uncountable, right? Which means that these are nouns that can actually take many and much depending on the context, right? So let's go. Okay, so we move on to the context in which many and much can be used, right? So this is going to be dealing with nouns that can be countable and uncountable, okay? So some nouns can be countable or uncountable depending on the context. Examples include trouble and time, right? So depending on what we want to express, we can use many and much with these two nouns, right? So let's look at the examples. In life, there are many troubles, okay? So troubles obviously is plural here, and we use many with that. Therefore, we use many. But troubles in this case is referring to difficult situations, okay? So these can be counted as individual things. So therefore, trouble can have a singular and it can have a plural form. So this is how we can use many. So troubles in this case means that refers to a difficult situation, right? And on the contrary, I didn't have much trouble with that. Now, trouble in this case is of course singular, and trouble refers to difficulty, right? So difficulty would be singular, would be uncountable, right? So it's that you're having difficulty with that, whatever that is. So in this case, we would use much, right? Because we're not talking about trouble as difficult situations that can be counted. So we use much here, meaning difficulty, right? And of course, you see we use it in the negative because once again, we don't really use much in the affirmative, right? Next example, time. So we have been there many times. Okay, so times would be plural, times would be countable, times would refer to occasions. So occasions that can be counted. Therefore, we use many. We have been there many times, right? Conversely, they do not have much time. Okay, so time in this case is singular and it's uncountable because we're referring to time as a concept, right? So they do not have much time. So here, time refers to occasion, and here, time refers to the concept. Okay? So some nouns can be countable and uncountable, and it's just going to depend on the context. Right? So remember, we use many with plural countable nouns and we use much with singular uncountable nouns. Okay? So now we're going to proceed to a quiz and we're going to test how much knowledge you have grasped. So we move on to the quiz. Alright? And let's look at the instructions. So determine whether many or much is appropriate and fill in the spaces, okay? So the first thing we will need to do is we will need to look at the noun. That's how we are going to determine whether many or much will be appropriate, okay? So 1, there were dogs. Dogs would be plural. Therefore, the answer for 1 would be many. Many dogs. Because dogs can be made singular. You can say a dog or you can say dogs, right? So we use many. 2, I do not have sympathy for them. Sympathy would be singular, and that is a noun that you cannot count. Therefore, the answer for 2 would be much. 3, we do not have time left. Time is singular. In this context, we're talking about time as a concept. Therefore, time is going to necessitate much. We do not have much time. And 4, people believe in the concept of heaven. People would be plural, and if we want to make people singular, we would say a person, right? So the answer for 4 would be many. Okay, so as you see, many is going to be used with plural countable nouns and much is going to be used with singular uncountable nouns. Alright, so this brings us to the end. I hope that this was helpful. Many thanks for watching and see you in the next one.